Hope everybody can hear me all right. This is a debut for me. It's my first time chairing a webinar. It's a bit like radio in as much as I can see the guests, but I can't see the audience. So hopefully it'll be an enjoyable couple of minutes for you all. I think for the purposes of this, the microphones of everybody but the people on the panel are actually muted. But if people would like to ask questions, as Brian said, you can simply send a message directly. I think they come up on our screens, as far as I know from Brian, but we'll try and get through them. The format, we've got a panel of 5 speakers, ranging across a breadth of experience in training. And what I'm going to ask them to do is to each maybe just give us a short 2.5 minute introduction to themselves and what they do at the start, and then maybe we can have questions. Maybe the panel will address some issues among themselves, you know, and across to each other, and hopefully you will emerge at the end of about 45 minutes or so with an enhanced understanding of training and what part it can play in your business. I think the last time I chaired something was probably about 2.5 months ago in a completely different world, and little would I have known that I would spend half my time staring into my computer screen, looking at other people's faces on Zoom calls and on Microsoft Teams calls. I have to say this is a really good one. A lot of the time I spend looking at people kind of like that and seeing the top of their heads on a lot of people on calls, and there's a few people that I spend looking at things like that with them. So we're all adapting to the new world, and as far as I can make out at the moment, I'm the only person who's got a COVID haircut, but I'm sure we're all adapting. If any of the rest of you have, you're all hiding it very well, particularly you, Eoin, I have to say. But anyway, you don't want to be listening to me talking. What I would say about training is that I think it may be fair to say that this current crisis or the current situation has created many opportunities for training. I know a lot of our staff here in KCLR have never done more training. We've never done our own internal training in so many different ways. I used to rely on somebody to operate the studio with me when I was doing my business program, which I do. And through a range of WhatsApp videos, which have been sent to me by colleagues who I haven't met in some cases for 2 months, I'm now able to actually operate a radio studio on my own. So training is meeting very real needs. And I suppose with the publication of the government's Back to Work protocol as well, there are many training requirements arising out of that as well. So without further ado, I'll introduce the panel to you briefly, and then I'll ask each of them to maybe give you 2 minutes on what they do in training and how they can help you. I'm delighted to be joined by Edmond Connolly, who's Southeast Regional Skills Forum, Aishling Ward from Carlow Kilkenny Skillnet, Pauline Hoctor from the Carlow Local Enterprise Office, Joe Manning from Barrow Consultancy and Training, and Eoin O'Brien from the Institute of Technology in Carlow. So that's our panel. As I say, I think we have about 20 people on the call. From where I sit, I have no idea of who you are and where you're from. I'm not too sure if the panel do either. But without further ado, I'd like to ask Edmond Connolly from the Southeast Regional Skills Forum to perhaps spend the next 2.5 minutes telling us a bit about yourself, Edmond, and what you do.
Thanks, John. Delighted to be here, and compliments to Carlow Chamber for organising this. Yeah, so I manage what's called the Southeast Regional Skills Forum, and we've been operating for the past 4 years now. And really, in a nutshell, the role of the Regional Skills Forum is to assist companies across all sectors address skills and training needs, and to work closely with the education and training providers to respond to those needs. So I cover Carlow, Kilkenny, Waterford, Wexford, and South Tipperary. And in the old normal, I used to spend my time out meeting companies and meeting sectors just trying to understand what their skills and training needs were, and then going back to the colleges and the ETBs and Skillnets to try and see how could we meet those needs. And we've had a lot of successes over the past few years with a lot of new courses, part-time, springboard, apprenticeships, Skillnet, traineeships across all different sectors. So and we've set up a few networks. We've been engineering the Southeast network, very involved with financial services network. There's a Crystal Valley ICT network in the Southeast. We work closely with the Hotels Federation, the Construction Industry Federation. But we are where we are now, and I suppose it's a different world. Initially, I'm one of 9 around the country, and we're just closely monitoring what's happening in each sector, and it differs very much from sector to sector. And I really empathize with people in hospitality and retail and sectors that are individual companies that are completely shut down. So it's a big challenge, but we have to look forward. And I'm spending a lot of my time talking to companies about signposting them to new opportunities in terms of training, addressing needs, getting support from other companies. And I'd be delighted to go into detail during the session here now. So thanks, John.
Thanks very much, Edmond. Could I just ask you a quick question? What's the biggest change that the COVID crisis has brought about in the way you're working with companies?
Well, sure, it's all remote. I'm we do a lot of these sort of Zoom, Skype, and Microsoft Teams meetings. So I suppose it's grand for companies that I know, people that I have a relationship with. But I suppose it's more challenging to reach out to companies that you don't know, because I suppose you can't beat the initial face-to-face to get to know people and to get to know companies and to really understand what their business is about. But look, we're getting on with it.
And you're open for business if somebody has just a vague thing of, I want some training, I'm not exactly sure about how to go about it. You're there to be contacted as a resource.
Yeah, 100%. So in a nutshell, I'm kind of in the middle there between the education and training providers and different industry business sectors. So we have a website, regionalskills.ie, and there's a lot of information there. There's a lot of resources, my contact details, and be more than delighted to hear from any company, business, or individual who has an issue in relation to skills and training. I don't provide training myself, but I work closely with Ashling, with Eoin, with Pauline, and others in the region. Okay. So there's a lot there, and it's not easy for businesses to figure out what's there. So,
and you're there to help.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much, Edmond. I'll go to you, Ashling, next.
Thanks,
Aishling Ward from Carlow Kilkenny Skillnet. I'm sure big changes in how you've operated as well over the last, is it 2 months or 2 years? I can't remember.
We're actually 20 years this year working in the Carlow and Kilkenny area, helping companies. And we've tinkered away with online and virtual over the years, but only in a very small way, in a very piecemeal way. But what's been interesting is, and great success to the companies and to the trainers, to be fair to them, that they've all come on board very, very quickly in terms of being able to turn around their offerings. So all classrooms have gone virtual or digital classrooms. We're offering webinars, seminars, whatever we can do to help the businesses and their staff over the last couple of months, trying to get as specific as possible in terms of resources to them. So I'd say we'll all get into what we're doing, but I suppose for now the focus is on getting back to work and COVID resources around health and safety and hygiene and checklists and HR and all those things. But I have to say I'm so impressed with one, the technology, and two, the trainers who have gone out of their way to get resources up online very, very quickly. And the response has been great. I couldn't have foreseen the uptake. I'm hoping it's not because people are bored at home. I'm hoping it's because there's a genuine appetite for training. I'm very, very pleased to see the numbers going through, the requests that are coming in, and as I said, the trainers working with us so efficiently to to get content up online as quick as possible. So it's going well. Like Edmond says, we're getting on with it. We're doing our best, and we're very much open for business and asking companies to come and talk to us about what they want, and we'll provide whatever we can for them.
Aishling, what are you finding in the current environment are particularly popular kind of training courses?
In the beginning, it was all about managing teams remotely, how to engage with staff firstly, then how to keep going with customers and suppliers. So it was very much that environment. Whereas now the appetite is for, okay, getting back to the new normal, and what do companies need to do in terms of checklists for that. So it's around safety for their staff, for themselves and their staff. It's around how they're going to engage with customers and suppliers, and what they need to have in place to be safe, to be well, and to be compliant. So it's that area I would see for the next 6 weeks or so.
Particularly with the return to work protocol, there's quite a bit of stuff there, and people are exposed if they don't comply. Yeah,
there's a huge amount in it, and there's a lot of learning very, very quickly. But any of the tutors I've been talking to, the word is that I suppose to be reasonable in terms of what you have to put in place, because you could drive yourself mad with lists and lists and lists. So it's reasonable risk. I suppose it's general cop on and resources that you have, because this can be a very expensive time for companies as well. So reasonable is the words that we're going with when we're offering resources, particularly around health and safety, hygiene and compliance.
Thanks very much, Aishling. Now, our next speaker works in Carlow Local Enterprise Office, and I do business program on KCLR, and normally if a new training scheme or type of funding for small and medium-sized businesses are announced, it's a big deal, and there's a big rollout, and you get invited to the pre-invitation to the launch, and so on. And thank God all the invitations and stuff isn't in paper, because there would have been a blizzard over the last number of weeks and indeed months, because the way that the local enterprise offices have ramped up and provide a dizzying array of supports, funding options, mentoring, and so on, is really amazing. And I know that training is at the heart of it, and I've attended a couple of local enterprise office trainings myself since all this started. So perhaps, Pauline, you tell us a bit about the work that you've been doing of late in Carlow Local Enterprise Office.
Okay, thanks, John. Yeah, it's been certainly a different approach to working, not just for ourselves, but for many people on this call. And in terms of training, certainly we had to move everything online very quickly. So it's hard to believe, but this is my 9th week working from home. So in the first couple of weeks, as Ashling said, we were delivering a lot of training around leading your business through COVID. So helping people kind of digest what was going on, what to do to respond to it, how they needed to communicate with employees and with customers. And then as the weeks went on, we started kind of doing more industry-led stuff. So we did some supports for the food and drink sector in terms of how they pivot and how they got their products out to customers. Edmond did a piece with the engineers network in the southeast around how they responded to COVID and what they needed to do in conjunction with ourselves. Then within our own local enterprise office, we saw a lot of queries coming in as to how people, I suppose, used social media to message properly to customers, where they were in relation to their business. So was their business still open? Was it shut temporarily? And how did they communicate that piece and stay in touch with their customers? So then on top of that, there are just some examples of some of the training programs that we have delivered, and that was just in Carlow. And one thing I just want to say is that for anyone on this call, if you pop onto any of the local enterprise offices websites within the southeast, and there's a training program there and there's spaces available on it, those programs aren't exclusively for that county at the moment. We've opened up our whole suite of training to everyone in the southeast. So just to be aware of that, because it's important to know that if we're not delivering something that's a requirement for you, that you can pop onto the other Leo websites and see if they're responding that need. And then obviously we have been rolling out 2 very specific government responses. One is the business continuity voucher, which is a voucher or a grant for consultancy up to the value of 2,500. And the other then is the trading online voucher, which has gone from a grant of 50% to 90% to encourage businesses to look at how and develop their trading online platforms. And in response to that, we would have done some seminars and workshops around trading online and how to best use that particular voucher. And then we would have had some programs that were ongoing since the start of the year that we've either had to continue on or finish off through the likes of Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and that's gone really well as well in terms of engagement. To be fair to people have continued to engage on the programs and use this time really productively to get as much as they could out of them. So really that's a kind of a snapshot of where we are. And in terms of where we're going, for example, on Thursday we're delivering 2 workshops for the retail and hospitality sector around COVID-19. These are enterprise support workshops with James Burke and Bobby Kerr, and I suppose it's all around looking at what has the impact been on retail and hospitality, and then we're going to discuss the process of how people actually abide by and are in line with the government guidelines. Now, it's very much as a starting point, but to get the conversation going and get people thinking about what they need to do to comply, as Aishling was saying. And then from feedback from that session, we will develop out other supports. And then we have other things like social media tactics, that's been a really popular program. And now we're getting inquiries from people around starting their own business. So they may have been laid off, or they may have been now made redundant, and they're looking at, you know, how do I provide for myself here? Maybe now is the time to look at that business that was idea that was kind of at the back of the head, and seeing how they can develop out that business idea. So along with all those supports, our ongoing, our general kind of offering in terms of mentoring and business advice and all the other kind of suites of training programs that we delivered, we're as best as possible, we're trying to deliver those as well, John.
Thanks very much, Pauline. Just a quick one. I don't want to put you on the spot, but you mentioned the business continuity voucher. Is there a looming closing date for that?
Yeah, so I meant to say that. So that is due to close now, unless the government change their mind and decide to extend it out, but it is due to close this Friday. So for any businesses that are listening to us, what I'd say is if you were planning on applying for a continuity voucher, certainly try and get it into us before Friday, and you can just download the application form from our website, fill it in and send it through to enterprise@carlowco.ie. And the same for, you know, if anyone that is on here from one of the other counties, send it into your relevant Leo office. And
you're turning around applications pretty quickly as well, I understand.
Yeah, we're trying our best. Certainly, we at the moment have had probably well over 120 applications at this stage, and over 80 letters of offer gone out to clients. So we're working through things as quickly as possible. The TOV at the 90% there's been a huge take up on that as well. Again, I suppose just to remember, if you are planning on applying for that, I'd say get it in sooner rather than later, because we only have a certain allocation as well, so we won't be able to stay approving all of these things on an ongoing basis. There will be timelines around when we'll have to stop.
Okay, thanks very much, Pauline, for that overview.
Thanks, John.
Of all the stuff that you're going. I'm going to move on now to Joe Manning. Joe's from Barrow Consultancy and Training Limited. I hope you can hear us loud and clear. Joe, if you wouldn't mind giving us a bit of an update on where you guys are coming from and what you're doing at this time.
Okay, well, thanks for that, John, and apologies for the glitch at the start.
Oh, no problem.
Right. Okay, we've been around for, I think, 12 or 13 years now. So what we're doing mainly at the moment, we're a training company, as you know, but we've always had our online platform doing things like childcare, healthcare, childcare to 5 and 6, all those kind of things. That we've had that running for some time, and that's where the individual comes on and takes themselves through the program. So that's going as it always went. It's busy enough. But the big development for us has been the move to the virtual classroom, and that's going really well. We have about 6 programs running on the virtual classroom at the moment. Now, they're mainly with ETBs, and a lot of them are centered around infection prevention and control. But now what's happened, and it kind of comes back to what somebody else was saying, that the Restaurant Association of Ireland, we're doing a program with them, which is it's a level 6 in HR management, but now we're bringing in our workshops around infection prevention and control. Say, for instance, like infection and prevention and control for the staff. And we're doing the same now for Limerick Clare ETB in the retail sector. That we're running it for the retail staff. And what's coming across to us is that what seems to be the case is that the management will be expected to do their level 5 in QQI inspection, prevention and control. But the non-managers, the floor people in that, they will be expected to do workshops in the same thing. And all of these, by the way, are approved by QQI. And what we've done, which is kind of relevant today, where there are exams involved, we've put in assessments instead, which have been approved by QQI. So we don't have any exams, that the learners will do assessments. And typically what happens is that there will be workshops which will be specifically related to the industry. For example, retail. What happens if somebody gets sick on the floor, a child gets sick on the floor? How do you deal with somebody coming in who you suspect has the infection? Things like that. Those are workshops which the I say the ordinary floor workers, for the want of a better word, will have to do. So they log into those, and there's a test at the end of it which they have to do. And we can remotely correct that, and then they're issued with a certificate. But the big attraction for me in the virtual classroom is that, say for instance, at the moment we're doing one with a company, and they have 12 people on it. So if you miss it, it's a 2-hour class, and it's interactive, the same way as we're interactive now. And people ask questions, and you have discussions between different people in the class. The beauty about it is that the whole thing is recorded. So if you happen to miss it, for whatever, you can come back and log into it and get it. Or if you want to go back to it and look over something, you can access it. And I think this, because I can't see things going back to what we call normal for quite some time. And I think this is the way to go. And it works. It works well. But we have the online platform, which is the individual. But actually, and I'm not allowed to say this in our own office, but I think that is very limited. That for adult education, Ashling will know this, particularly at level 6. When you have people coming from a working environment, an awful lot of the learning takes place between the individuals on the course. So you have to allow for that dialogue between the individuals, and the classroom allows for that. That's why I say it's so important. That's me.
Thanks very much, Joe. It's amazing really how necessity is the mother of invention, for want of a better word, and all sorts of businesses finding new ways. Last Saturday on the business program on KCLR, I interviewed a woman who's now doing virtual bra fittings. And she doesn't think she'll be open until maybe August, but she's been able to use the technology and all the various things, and the show goes on. So it's quite amazing. Our last member of our panel is Eoin O'Brien from the Institute of Technology in Carlow. Eoin, over to you.
Hi, John. Nice to meet you, and thanks, Brian, for organising. John, yeah, I think in terms of Institute of Technology Carlow and specifically the Faculty of Lifelong Learning, what we've been focused on at the moment is that we have quite a large cohort of students that are currently completing programs. And so when the government made the decision to shut the colleges, while we were expecting the call to come, we were a little bit taken by surprise by the speed at which it happened. Now, if there was a positive thing, it happened at the end of the academic year. So we were very fortunate. The college has made a strong investment in our learning management system. So we were able to essentially flip the classroom from a physical space to an online space, much as what Joe has alluded to there previously. So most of our associate lecturers and our students were able to continue on with very little disruption to their studies. Once we taught out the remainder of our courses, our focus has then shifted to the running of examinations. And you can see with the Leaving Cert debacle, the challenges that can present, but we've handled it relatively smoothly to date. We have gone with forms of alternative assessments and online open book exams, and we're coming to the end of our exam cycle now. So I'm pleased to report that up to now we've had very few issues in terms of students encountering issues around technology or having to defer or drop out. So while the unprecedented nature of this crisis has been challenging for nearly everybody, I'm pleased to report that our student cohort this year will still be able to complete their academic year and progress on their studies, or in some cases graduate with their qualifications. So that pipeline of talent continues coming into the southeast. In terms of where we go to next, our focus will be on rolling out our range of courses for our September intake. So we work closely, obviously, with the likes of Edmond and Ashling in how we develop courses and prepare courses. One thing I would encourage members of the Chamber to keep an eye out for is, I monitor this on a daily basis, but there's the government initiative called Springboard, which is subsidised education places for the unemployed, for returners, i.e. homemakers or people with caring responsibilities who wish to return to work. And then it's also aimed at current employees who have to pay 10% of the fees, but it's free essentially for the unemployed and returners, and 90% of the fees are covered by that training fund from Springboard. So we hope to hear about that by the end of May, beginning of June, and that hopefully might provide opportunities for people caught up in the current crisis who may have to look at upskilling or reskilling opportunities. And while I'm conscious of the time, John, so I won't go on it now, but maybe if there's time at the end, we were pleased to announce yesterday that we've launched 4 new funded programs which will be delivered online. The 4 level 7 certificates, and I can give you the details of that maybe towards the end of the call for any members of the Chamber who might be interested in learning more about it.
Oh, thanks, Eoin.
On a personal note, just on a personal note, John, I previously worked at the Open University, who would be seen as leaders in distance learning. When I joined them, they had 250,000 students on their books, and so to me, I've always observed that people had a suspicion of remote learning and online learning in terms of engagement I would have had with them, and I think this current crisis kind of brings online and distance learning and remote learning more in stream with the traditional mechanism of educational delivery, and we hope to be at the forefront of that.
Yeah, it's been amazing, hasn't it? The transition and the way people have seemed to adapt to it, and sure, it has some challenges. I had a particularly difficult training attendance once with a very dodgy internet connection, and it was a bit of a nightmare, but I mean, the advantages are huge. We've a couple of questions coming in, folks, and I might just throw them to the panel if anybody could answer them. The first one is about the new back to work protocol, and the questioner says that it means loads of changes and additional training in various ways, and they want to know if there are any specific grants or supports to assist with those with these changes, which is all about the back to work, the training for the back to work, which is about, you know, the logs of employees, the contact reports, the temperature taking and all that. Anyone like to take that? Edmond, Pauline, Aishling, Joe?
Probably a bit more in Pauline's space, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the government have announced that there will be supports, but we have gotten no clarity on them as of yet. What I would say at the moment, relating to the business continuity voucher, one thing I've noticed, there's been a bit of a shift this week towards using that to access consultants to give you guidance in this space. So while it's not necessarily training, it's more consultancy and mentoring. Ultimately, you could apply using a business continuity voucher to get a consultant on board to help you put a continuity plan in place around that whole return to work protocol and the requirements and I suppose the documentation, etc. that you need to get in place. So we've had a couple of inquiries around that related to the business continuity voucher. So at the moment, that's what I would be using. In terms of the return to work protocols, we will be covering some of those as part of our training on Thursday as well. But in terms of the actual grant that the government announced, we haven't been given any further details of that as of today. We're hoping that we will get further clarity on that over the next couple of days.
Thanks very much.
John, I might
Sorry, Aishling, yeah.
Yeah, I might come in on that as well. So what we've done is we've worked with a food hygiene specialist who has a background with the EHA and created a checklist for companies where they can go through from opening their door to what they have to do in terms of compliance. And we have that available for any company that wants it. So Brian, you might put my contact details up at the end for anyone that needs that. The other thing is we have a COVID health and safety compliance course. Now the first one is on next week on the 19th and that's full already. But the one after that is the 29th of May. So we'll be constantly running courses and workshops and seminars trying to help like Pauline, trying to help companies get their head around it. We're trying to get our heads around it ourselves as well, but as soon as we can get all the information, we'll have it turned around very fast into workshops. So you can check our website, or we've twice a week a newsletter going out to companies, and Brian will send those details around. So anything that we can do to help around as I say, turning the door, getting back to work and being as compliant as possible and making as reasonable an effort as possible to get back to the new normal.
Thanks, Aishling. Anyone else? Anything to say on that particular one?
If I could just come back in for 1 second, John, and just Aishling mentioned about their newsletter. That's one of the ways that we're very quickly turning around information that we're getting from the department and getting it out to clients. So again, I'd say sign up to those newsletters or follow us on LinkedIn or on our Facebook page, because as things change and we get more up-to-date information, we try and release those then as quickly as possible. And then you're kept in touch in terms of what's going on from a training point of view, but also in terms of other government supports as they're announced. And one thing I would say is that there, in terms of working capital, there is a Microfinance Ireland COVID-19 loan facility available between 5 and 50,000, and you can access support to apply for that through your local enterprise office. So again, just get in touch with us in terms of if people need to invest in equipment or other things, and they need access to the cash to do that. And the MFIs are being turned around in about 2 weeks. So just to be aware of that as well.
Okay, I think it was it yourself, Aishling, or Pauline, that mentioned the food hygienist who was doing the checklist, but there's a question in, can we access the food hygienist as a mentor rather than a webinar, and would that be funded? I presume that'd be a case of focusing your grant application for the COVID continuity scheme application in that direction, Pauline.
Yeah, so what I'd say is if you apply through the COVID business continuity voucher application, I suppose each of those are assessed individually when they come into our office. So if it's deemed appropriate that what the business is looking for, and that the consultant is compliant from our point of view, we could certainly take a look at it. Yeah, just to remind people to get them in before Friday, though.
Another, sorry, someone else want to come in there?
John, I was just saying, just in relation to that, to the hygiene specialist. So if that person who had that question, if they want to contact me, and we can, our hygienist has already ran a course for us, and we can get those slides and notes and additional information over to that person. It might be a help.
Okay, another question in, which is about, in the whole context of training moving online, the question is, are companies required to supply the proper equipment to ensure all staff can complete the training effectively? Anyone like to comment on that? Joe, maybe?
Well, I think that regardless of training, the companies are required to provide the proper equipment. You know, I think that companies have to be careful here, because you know, there's a psychological problem there too. Guys coming back, I've experienced with a local company here. People coming back to work are very nervous. You know, they're nervous about their own health, their family's health, their kids' health. So they're going to need huge reassurance. And the protocol is fairly well laid out there. And like, they have to have the proper equipment, whether they're doing training or not, you know. But just on the training point, we're finding that it's the ETBs are driving our end of it very much. That, like I mentioned earlier about the retail, they're running a retail thing and it's full, and they want to run another one. And it's, as I said, it's based around infection prevention and control. And the way it's organized with QQI now is that we can transfer that to any industry. We're doing it with hospitality as well, but it can go to any industry. The qualification is standard, but the workshops are industry specific. But the ETVs are doing quite a bit there, so I'd keep an eye on those as well, looking for, and it's free training.
Okay, another question, which is, what is the best way to maintain records of staff having completed online courses? Edmond, do you want to?
I can come in there.
Joe, you've got that?
Yeah. No, sorry, we issue a cert.
Okay.
I'd just say, in terms of, you know, for all employees, you will have, you have records. So I think it is useful, if it's a manual system, keep a manual record on their file. Some companies then would have and some sort of a HR system online or digital records. But I think it's really important to keep track of training that employees have done. You know, you do need, I think, I was on a call this morning with the financial services sector, and a lot of companies, some of them very big, some of them small, and there was a kind of a common theme that while our customers are vitally important, our staff are also, you know, we really need to keep, you know, value our staff, and you need to know what skills they have. If there's any gaps, there's plenty of opportunities to bridge those gaps. And I think, so I'm not sure is that properly answering the question, but certainly keep a record of what they do, for sure.
John, can I just come in on that?
For sure, yeah.
Just to mirror what Joe was saying, you know, it's not just a matter of you know, physically getting staff back to work. There is support that needs to be done. I mean, we can package it under HR, but we've been trying ourselves to offer some help and assistance around stress management, pressures of people coming back to work, and their fears and concerns. So there is work to be done in that area, and I just mirror that, and we're trying to do a little bit of it ourselves. I know Pauline is offering some, but it is important to reach out to staff, whether that be on a group basis by line managers, or it depends on the size of the company, but work needs to be done. It's not just a matter of turning the key on a door and opening up and hoping for the best. Work needs to be done on that area.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. Anyone else like to, and it's an area that probably, because we're in that overused word, we're in a totally unprecedented situation, and there are probably needs that haven't traditionally been, you know, the training industry in kind of 1918 when the Spanish flu was around was probably a lot less advanced. Edmond, you'd probably have a key role in kind of helping companies identify issues around that. It's in the whole well-being area and how to manage, you know, I've never come across having to deal with somebody who'd have their 4-year-old child bursting in on them when they're reading the news at 9 o'clock in the morning before.
Yeah, we're facing a whole new set of challenges for sure. One thing I've learned in the past few years, a lot of businesses, you know, business owners put a lot of pressure on themselves to come up with all the answers themselves. But your staff have tons of knowledge, and you know, if they have a vested interest in this, and I think it's really useful to engage early and often with your staff in terms of coming up with safe and effective ways to return to business, and what needs to be done, and how can you address various problems. And I think you get I think that's a better way, rather than be prescriptive and come up with a rule book and say, right, first day back, here's the rule book, follow that. You know, I think people will want more reassurance, and I think if they're involved in you know, the design and implementation of some of these measures, I think you get a lot more support.
Yeah, there's a question coming in, and it actually touches off a really important issue, because you know, really small businesses represent a huge part of the economy. And it's from Jane, and she said she's a sole trader working on her own in retail, fitting dancewear and shoes, and she's a bit lost as to how she can reopen. I may be wrong, I've only seen information for employers, employees. Is there any info for someone working on their own? I have my continuity voucher already, many thanks. I suppose is that a local enterprise office one? Is it this person doesn't see themselves as a company as such? I would guess, and Jane, come back to us by all means, but you're looking for somebody to talk to as much as anything else.
Yeah, what I'd say to Jane is I'll contact her later today and we can have a conversation. I'm familiar with her business, but I mean, for an owner, manager, or somebody who's self-employed, if you're going to have customers coming back to you at some point down the line when everywhere is reopened to some extent, then there's going to be protocols in place to how you comply with social distancing, with government guidelines. It's the same is going to apply to you, whether you have employees or not. So you would need to be putting a plan in play around how to approach that, and I suppose one thing that Aishling and Edmond have kind of alluded to is that communication piece. So it's about building confidence with customers again. So how do you communicate to customers when you are at the point that you're allowed to reopen, that you're reopening in compliance with the government guidelines, and that you're doing everything in your power to facilitate that, both from the protection of you as the person providing the service or the goods, and from the customer point of view in terms of them coming into your premises and knowing and having the confidence that as a valued customer and a loyal customer to your business or your brand, that you're going to be able to come in and that standards are being adhered to. There's a very strong communication piece that needs to be thought out there by each business. And equally in relation to employees returning to work, as Edmond has said, like a very strong communication and trust piece with your employees around what's required, and making sure that they're doing their very best to comply with social distancing. I think we've all been, you know, in supermarkets. I think everyone would have at least been in a supermarket over the last couple of weeks, and I have to say at times I wonder whether social distancing is being adhered to. I think people are getting tired, you know, of the whole situation that we're in, and you know, shelves are being filled, you know, our customers being courteous towards those employees and giving them the space to finish off what they're doing and having the patience to do so, and thinking all that through around how do you manage all of that. It's very, very difficult. So that's what I would say in response to Jane, like you have a responsibility to protect yourself, but also to protect the customers that will be coming back to you eventually. And then also thinking about how you possibly can pivot the business. So I know, John, you alluded to the lady who's doing the bra fittings, you know, remotely. So how do you actually start to think about doing shoe fittings or dancewear fittings remotely as well, and being compliant in that space as well?
Thanks very much, Pauline. It's 9 minutes to 3, folks. So if anyone has any other questions, you better get them in pretty quickly. Just Eoin, I'm conscious you said at the outset that you had a few courses you'd like to mention before the end, and we are kind of coming towards the end. I'd ask people if they have any questions just to remind you. I think another one has come in, but Eoin, if you could quickly bring us through those ones that you mentioned.
Yeah, so yesterday we had a press release announcing, as part of a social enterprise development initiative for the Southeast, we're rolling out 4 courses. One is a certificate in strategy, innovation and decision making, which will be run over 6 evenings with dates in May and June. We have a certificate in management development, which is I suppose critical to all organizations in terms of how they develop their staff. We have a certificate in marketing management, again with dates in May, June and July, and a certificate in governance, business ethics and management development, which we're rolling out in June and July too. So we have access to a dormant accounts fund, so we have limited places on those programs, but they're fully online and fully funded. So if it's aimed at the social enterprise sector, but we will open it to people in the wider sectors if they're interested in those programs. So I'd encourage people to go to our website and look at those programs if it suits their current training needs, or maybe their future training needs at the moment.
I like the sound of that. Access to the dormant accounts fund.
It's all about finding where the money is.
Okay, let's we'll have a premium webinar on that one. Okay, and I'm going to put the panelists on the spot now, because it kind of ties into this, but I'm going to ask each of the panelists to come up with their top tip for a training course or a type of training or something to really expand your horizons. And it comes from a question. I got a question from Colin, who says there is some very innovative webinars and short courses out at the moment, and congratulations to all the panelists. Are there any new courses coming on the horizon that you believe will be something we should be looking out for? So top tips, folks, and keep it brief. Who will I come to first? Hand up. Pauline?
Okay, so yeah, there's a couple coming down the line. I'd recommend that people log on, anyone in the retail or hospitality side of things, log on Thursday. Just go on to our website, localenterpriseoffice.ie/Carlow, pop into online training or events booking page and get onto that webinar, which is called Enterprise Support Workshop, I suppose, in terms of helping people return after COVID. And that'll help you start to think about, you know, what do I need to do? And out of that, hopefully we'll put more responses in play. And then, yeah, and my top tip really along with that is to sign up for the e-zine or keep following us on social media and engaging with us and engaging with the programs and supports that we're delivering.
Okay, Aishling?
Some of the people on today might know of a business coach, a mentor, Jerry Duffy. And we're working with Jerry. He started with us early May, and once a week he has a webinar. We're going to run that through May and June, and it's called From Grounded to Great. So I think that probably sums it all up, and he's trying to help business owners and managers to access new ways of operating. I suppose that's one thing I have seen in my discussions with companies and individuals. Numbers, Pauline says 9 weeks. There's a huge amount of resourcefulness in our owner managers, and they have great ideas. All they need is a little bit of support and a little bit of minding around the edges, I suppose. And Jerry Duffy is absolutely excellent with that. So if anyone wants to come on board with us, From Grounded to Great.
Joe, if you'd like to tell us of any hot tips that your company, Barrow Consultancy and Training, is providing, or indeed any training advice in general. Top tips, please.
Yeah, okay. Excuse me. This is coming from a different angle altogether, and it's kind of post-COVID, because you know, Brexit is coming down the line.
Oh, thanks.
If we'd all forgotten about it, but it is an interesting one. There's a manufacturing company here in Bagenstown. They employ about 35 people. They do specialist manufacturing, and they have switched their attention from the UK to Germany over the last year. But they've just been informed by their main German customer, who's the facilities manager for Facebook in Europe and Middle East and places like that, and they do a special thing for them, that if they want to keep business, they're going to have their ISO 9000 by the end of the year. So they came to us, we're taking them through the ISO 9000. And I think that's something else that we have to look at. There hopefully will be a life after COVID, and hopefully there'll be a life after Brexit too, but it's coming down, and it's going to affect our traditional manufacturing went to England. It's going to have to change. But that's something that we have the ISO. So we're taking them through it. So if there are companies out there who big companies can handle it themselves, that we don't want to talk to them. I'm talking about your 20, 30 job place that feel they need to get the ISO 9000, we'll take them through it.
Eoin, if I could come to you. Thanks very much, Joe. Eoin?
I think I maybe preempted you a little bit, John, with those 4 courses. But the one thing I would encourage people to keep an eye out for, like I mentioned earlier on, is the Springboard Initiative. Particularly in the current climate, if people find themselves out of work at the moment, these places for education, and it removes that financial barrier that inhibits people from accessing education. The other thing I would encourage, maybe, it's only been released today, is IBEC have produced a report, Reboot and Reimagine campaign for reopening the economy, and they make plenty of references within that around increasing funding for training and upskilling and safeguarding the National Training Fund. So I do believe over the coming weeks and months that once the economic picture starts to build up, we may be able to identify other funds that could be accessed by people, but that's going to be a bit of a moving picture. So I just encourage people to keep engaging with the likes of Edmond and IT Carlow, and as those supports may come on stream, we'll look to roll them out.
Thanks, Eoin. Edmond, I suppose I'll leave the last word to you, or the last top tip. You've an overview of the entire Southeast, I suppose, and as you say, you've been working across all the sectors. What's your top tip?
Yeah, I suppose my top tip, just to set the context for it, it can be very confusing for a company or a business owner or a sole trader to figure out what courses are available, suitable for me, when. And they get, you know, there's a whole range and there's a number of providers, but I would boil it down to, there are 4 or 5 contacts you need to be keeping an eye on, either yourself or someone in your company. Every couple of weeks, have a look at what Skillnets are doing locally. They have a website. Have a look at what the Leo are doing locally. They have a website. The college, likewise. The ETBs and Barrow, so they're the providers in the area. They all have, like Fetch Courses is the ETB database. It's extensive and it changes regularly. Literally on a weekly basis, what Ashling and Pauline and others are offering is changing. So you'll never get the definitive list, but you need to know, my top tip is, a dumb priest never got a parish. You need to ask, you know, Brian is great in the chamber. He'll point you to us. If I'm more than happy, you know, there's a few, have somebody who knows the answers or can point you in the right direction. Don't be worried about having to know all the detail yourself, but if there's 2 or 3 or 4 people you can contact to say, look, what's relevant over the next 3 months, I've staff that need training in X, Y, and Z, we'll give you very good pointers.
Thank you very much, Edmond. I suppose in summary, don't start with thinking that you have to have the answers. Start with a question and actually reach out to loads of people who are there and only too willing to help. Okay, folks, I think we're going to leave it at that and just encourage you all on the call to reach out and talk to each other, because no more than this, we're all working and living in extraordinary times which are characterized by isolation, really. And it's important as we all face these challenges that we don't feel isolated. And as I mentioned, the lady Breach, who I interviewed last Saturday, the response from people is absolutely amazing, and the innovation and the energy and the resilience that's been shown by people is just extraordinary. And shameless plug time, if any of you want to hear some of those, you can tune into KCLR every Saturday morning. I'm doing a business program and I have great people on, if I do say so myself, every week. And so I'd urge you, if people, any of the participants, if you've got business stories that you'd like to share, do please do that, but do tune in and you'll hear lots of great business people from across Carlow and across Kilkenny. So with that, I'll just hand back to Brian, and thank you for the opportunity for meeting you all this afternoon. See you.
Thank you.
And thanks very much, John. I know normally we don't have the pleasure of seeing you when we're listening, so it's good to have you on the webinar, and thanks very much for hosting this afternoon. Thank you to our guests, the panelists this afternoon, Ashling, Eoin, Joe, Edmond, and Pauline as well. I know there's been a lot kind of covered, but we wouldn't have been able to cover it without the input and the questions which were posed. So thanks very much to everybody who took time to join us. We'll have more webinars and that we'll be announcing details of in the next week or so. So feel free to log on to the Chamber website, and all details of all our webinars will be there. And what I'll do is, for everybody who was online with us today, I'll send out details of where you can access information from Skillnet to the Southeast Regional Skills and Barrow training. And we'll also be sending out a link to the webinar as well, so that you can play back and have a look at certain aspects of it. So for me in the Chamber, and to all our panelists and our chair for this afternoon, thank you very much and keep safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.